Hi, good morning. This is Sarah Kittle, editor of the Chaldean News, and I am here with Lydia Michael. She is a celebrated speaker. She's the owner of Blended Collective and the author of a new book called Brand Love that just came out last month. Thank you for agreeing to this interview, Lydia.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Sarah.
Okay, and I've learned about the Chaldeans here in Michigan. A lot of them are actually from the families are originally from Talkepi, and so that's different. But you have a unique history as a Chaldean who was born and raised in Germany.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that has helped shape your personality.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my family actually spent more time in Germany than they did in Iraq when they left back in the day. So, to me, being Chaldean and being born and raised in Germany has really enriched the way I sort of operate in my day-to-day life, whether it's, personally or in business. I think it's had a lot of positive impact though, because when I look at the rich Chaldean culture and sort of the deep traditions that we have and the values and the stories that we have in the community, they've really shaped this foundation that I have for both my faith, but also for really strong family values. And so I think that that's been a really good balance with me growing up in Germany, because on that side of the culture, the country or the culture, I should say, is very much known for, discipline and order and efficiency and all of those things that Germans are known for. And so I think, and also the emphasis on education, really, which I know is also very strong in the Chaldean culture. But I think that that has allowed me to have respect for order and diligence and punctuality. So to me, it's a very unique intersection that allows me to successfully navigate both of those worlds and both of those cultures. And because of that, I think that I have a personality that is very easy to adapt, not just to changes, but also to people.
Well, that makes sense. And I know that Germans are also very strong on tradition
Yes.
and on faith too. So that I imagine that you found some, common ground there.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
So, what do you want to know?
And do you have siblings, and are they also, entrepreneurs like yourself, or?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have one sister actually. She lives in Chicago, and we always say we're similar in certain values that we have, but we're also very different because she's actually not an entrepreneur, but she's still very successful. She works in the corporate world and retail and has always, been sort of in that space. And we found it's funny because we both studied marketing, but our career paths have taken such opposite ways, more than you can imagine. And so we always say how it's interesting that we sort of started in a similar way, but then we kind of both found what we enjoy and what we're good at and successful in our own ways. Yeah, but my family at the time, I came to the US with both my parents and my sister. So it's just actually the two of us, two girls. Um, Fairly small family for Chaldeans. I know a lot of the families are big, but I do have a really big family on both my mom and my dad's side. That was one of the key reasons actually why we decided to come to the US, from Germany.
When was that?
That was in 2005.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, you place a lot of importance on culture, Lydia. I know that when brand, a lot of that is about culture. What is your culture and how is it different from others?
I don't know if anyone has ever asked me that question. Um, I think so. When you ask what is my culture, see, I never really put myself in this cultural box where I'm one or the other. I find that people always try to do that. I've had people say to me, well, you're not really German because your parents are not German, you're Chaldean and you should just own that. But I'm like, I'm not just Chaldean though, again, being born and raised in a completely different culture, having a different upbringing and different environment, to me, it's really this culmination of these different cultures that I've come to know and that sort of are a part of me. And even more than that, I think growing up around a lot of different cultures and different religions, and my parents, I think that really my parents planted that seed in both my sister and I, because from a very young age, we always were around all these different people and cultural groups, and they really embraced it. And so we grew up um, with that being normal for us, right? And so when somebody says, "What is your culture?" I'm sort of, those are all my cultures, right? Because I've I embrace culture every day, not just in my work, but also just as part of who I am.
Well, and the name of your company, Blended Collective, I think kind of reflects that
Yeah,
multiculturalism too, doesn't it?
yes, absolutely.
Lydia, why is branding so important?
So branding is important because, so first of all, when you look at branding, it really is about creating this identity for your business or your brand, keeping in mind your target audience, right? So I think that that's one key reason why it's important that we are able to communicate who we are through the business that we have or a business that we work for. Um, yeah.
What's the difference between small and large companies in that respect?
It's actually very different when you look at a small business versus a large business that does branding, because you look at a small company, and even though they might be resourceful and mighty in what they do, they in general have a smaller budget to work with. So they have to be a little more creative as to how they brand themselves and really tap into the power of connecting and building relationships with their customers. And I'm not saying that that's not important for a large company, because it is equally important, but I think it is even more so relevant for a small business to do that, because you really thrive, your business thrives on those personal connections and relationships that you're able to build. And from that, you receive word of mouth, you receive organic growth. So I think that those are all really important elements for a small business. When we look at a large business, typically those companies have bigger budgets to work with, right? And so they're able to have maybe invest more in marketing research. They might be able to, do these big elaborate focus groups that we know and things of that nature. But then also they can invest heavily into their marketing, whether it's an advertising campaign, to really reach more of the masses that they're trying to target. So I think that there are different approaches and different ways of how you can brand depending on whether you're small or large, but there also are commonalities between the two.
Okay, that's a good segue for you to tell us a little bit about your book, Brand
Yeah.
Love, which came out on July 25th.
Yeah. So Brand Love, like you said, just came out recently, and it is a book that focuses on how you as a brand or as an organization can evoke the emotions of your customers by tapping into their hearts and minds. So in the book, I talk about, or I introduce a brand love model where I really try to make it practical for any company of any size to implement more of those emotional drivers, but also rational drivers in the business. So really the key focus is not just this human element of how can you humanize your company and your brand, but also how can you build in a balance of both culture and emotion as you're growing and building your business.
Okay, you mentioned Brand Love Driver. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah. So it's a list of very simple drivers that I introduce in the book, and they feed into the 8 brand love stages. But the drivers are essentially nothing more than concepts or topics um, that I introduce in a way where the reader can understand what contributes to brand love. So I have 10 emotional drivers, I have 10 rational drivers, and they're not limited to just these 10, but those are sort of the 10 that I've seen relevant throughout my research and my work with clients, where I just elaborate on those a little bit more. So to give you an example, some of the emotional drivers can be things like authenticity and empathy, humanization, personalization, or sustainability and trust. Those are things that really drive this connection between a customer and a brand that are important from a customer perspective. The rational drivers are also just as important, but as the name suggests, they're more rational, but they're still important when we're looking for that perfect product or service. So, things like being relevant or different and unique and, quality and customer experience. Those are all, without that, you can't just have emotional drivers. You really need to have a balance of both of those worlds.
That makes sense. What are the brand love stages that you talk about in your book?
So I'll give you some of them. I won't reveal them all.
No, we're gonna have people read the book to learn more.
Absolutely. But, some important ones to start with are very early on, where you want to create this awareness and familiarity and likeness, and really interest for people to want to try out your product or your service. But then once they do and they get sort of hooked, or attached, that's really where your trust starts to develop. And in those stages, it really is a turning point that then starts to lead to love. With all of the stages, I sort of have this theme of, not just the trust level, but also the love that results in loyalty and advocacy. And it's sort of based on these three different levels that I introduce in the book, where really it's foundational to create this self-identification aspect, right? So we really grow closer to the brands that we can identify with on a personal level, whether it's values aligning and whatnot, but also having this strong brand desire, right? So a lot of those things are very foundational in order for us to even like or love a company or a brand.
So it sounds like it's really about relationships, and there are stages of relationships. So that makes total sense.
Absolutely. And, to your point, I actually reference the person to person relationship in our personal lives throughout the entire book. And I compare that, or I draw parallels to that in the business world. And you've seen that done in marketing research for decades, where, we have very similar emotions and feelings towards brands that we really, really love and that we're loyal to, in the same way that we have to people that we have relationships with in our lives. So, yeah.
What what got you started in this particular niche? Can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So after coming to the US, I actually went back to Germany for a couple of years in 2015 and 16, for grad school. And during that time, I was doing an internship or wrote my master thesis and did some work with L'Oreal in Germany. And then after that, I came back to the US right away. And that topic that I focused on at L'Oreal in Germany was brand love. And when I came back and I was looking for, sort of work at the time, but then that didn't really work out the way I wanted it to. And I really took it upon myself to kind of start something from scratch. And the best thing I knew that I knew I would be good at was marketing, and it was culture. And I was trying to figure out how to bring these two worlds together, but also not just fulfill my passion, but at the same time provide value in the marketplace. And so to me at the time, and this was 2017 or so, I saw that there was a gap in the marketplace, especially here in Detroit and in Michigan, sort of with Detroit being on the rise up and reinventing itself. I thought that I could create a space for myself too, to really help businesses in any size build in culture and emotion into their work and understand the importance of reaching diverse audiences and all of those things. So I think that really sparked, the need and both the passion for me to start that.
Do you so the next question would be, what made you decide to create your own consulting business? But I think you just answered
Kind of
that.
answered it. Yes.
Do you feel like your business is a unique model, or are there other brand love businesses out there?
Yeah. And it's funny that you describe it as that, because really for, at Blended Collective, the focus is really around culture and emotion and marketing. It's sort of this intersection of these two worlds. Um, and there are businesses, there's businesses definitely, nationally, locally, that focus on culture and they focus on emotion and all of those things. But I think the uniqueness with Blended Collective is sort of me bringing in my own personal brand, my own experiences, and having this really unique upbringing and understanding of how these cultures work together, and then being able to apply that to my client work, I think brings a lot of value and richness. And so I think that that's really where I differentiate myself, and I'm unique, right? So there's people that do similar work, but they might have different cultural upbringings, and they're not, Chaldean, born and raised in Germany. They might be, from a different country, and have been exposed to different cultures. And so I think we all add a very unique perspective to the work that we do. And really, at the end of the day, can collaborate a lot more than we compete. So I think that that's really important.
Okay, I'm gonna go off script here and just throw out some questions that I'm interested in. Like,
Yeah.
how much does a logo have to do with the brand? What do
Yeah.
like Nike, just do it. It's so recognizable.
Yeah.
Um, and there are so many logos that are just recognizable, and so many loved,
Hmm.
that even fans will get upset when companies change their logo.
Yeah. And it happens a lot more than, than we think. But so it's funny because you touch on a concept that I emphasize very much in the book. And it's that a logo is more, or a brand is more than a logo. So a logo is certainly a part of your branding and a part of your brand. And it's a very important one because a lot of times what we see first is sort of the visual element of the brand. And so that's a part of it, but the brand is really and the entire experience that you create between a customer and the brand. So from the moment that I connect with you, whether I visit your website, you hand out a business card to me, I connect with you on Instagram, right? Sort of this entire experience, this 360 holistic experience that we have, all of that is the brand, and it's the brand experience. And all of these different customer touch points are just as important because we don't know how a potential customer might find us or engage with us starting out on their journey. And so we want to make sure that as they connect across all of these touch points, we deliver a very unique and consistent experience. So consistency a lot of times is key too in branding, but it certainly is more than a logo. And a lot of times we have to educate our new clients or new customers that come in to really help them understand, because I can't tell you, Sarah, how many times people have messaged us or reached out and said, I need a new brand. Can you help me design a logo? We're like, okay, hang on a second. It's a lot more than that, and sometimes the clients just don't know. And so we have to do that education and help them understand why it's so valuable to invest in your brand early on and do it right.
It's just a side note. It's amazing how many bad logos are out there too.
Yes. Oh, because people just underestimate the value and the importance of a good brand.
Right. So, can you tell me, your business started a little bit before the pandemic? You're probably just really starting to hit your stride when COVID hit. So, how has the industry changed since then, or has it?
Yeah, I think we had a good 2 years right before the pandemic hit. And, for a small business, I mean, you hear a lot of the statistics that say, if you make it past year 5 as an entrepreneur, that's like, less than 50% of the people do that. So for us, it was, sort of moving up, and then the pandemic started. And so for a second, we froze because we had to understand how to adjust and how to continue to provide value in this landscape that changed very, very quickly. And on one hand, we had to figure it out for ourselves because we're a small business, but at the same time, we had to figure out how to also help all these other small businesses that we were providing services to, right? So it was sort of this two-way model we had to figure out. And for us, it actually, the pandemic, after spending a few months on figuring out how to continue to be alive.
And all of the virtual reality and the
Exactly. I
Zoom
mean,
and
all of
everything.
that
Yeah.
just, yeah, adapting. We quickly found our place and where we can provide value. And in fact, it created a new pathway for us to bring on new projects. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But for us, it was working with economic development organizations. And they brought us on during that time because they received a lot of funding from the government. And now what continues as the ARPA funds and whatnot, right, to support their states and their small businesses. And so there were a lot of programs that were created to help these businesses through their difficult challenges and times with their businesses. And a lot of it was legal and financial and accounting, but a big chunk of it was marketing and adjusting your business to operate digitally. There were a lot of businesses that weren't even set up at all or set up successfully to operate digitally during that time. So we were brought on as a consultant with both the Small Business Development Center in Michigan and then also the Great Lakes Women's Business Council to work with these small businesses one-on-one and help them understand how they can pivot essentially. And so that was the start of, again, a new pathway sort of for us at Blended Collective to now partner with a lot of different economic development organizations to come in as that consultancy and help provide services on marketing and branding and, you know, host workshops and things of that nature. So to us, it really fed into our growth and it helped us. But I am also aware that for a lot of small businesses, unfortunately, you know, it wasn't necessarily positive.
So the model, the new path that you went on, is that still continuing, or have you found a little bit of pullback now that we're back to normal?
Yeah. No, it's actually continuing. I think that really is for the long term another way for us to operate and be active and really partner with these organizations to provide value not just to them but also just businesses that continue to trickle in. So that's definitely 1/3 of the model for Blended Collective. Another third is just the one-on-one relationships that we have with clients directly, and this is sort of how we started. But that is also growing from, you know, working with startups and small businesses to having conversations with some of the larger businesses and corporations and, you know, nonprofits. You know, that's probably the other third. And then the last part, the last third of the business is really this educational pillar, if you will, for Blended Collective, where we really educate, whether it's through thought leadership and content development, or even just, you know, me speaking at different conferences and hosting workshops to help people understand the importance of multicultural marketing and how to, you know, bridge the gap between culture and emotion and all of those things.
I imagine that's where a lot of your clients really see the value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just talking about 3 years ago, I don't think probably nobody knew how to use Zoom, but now everybody knows how to use it. So, technology, do you see any technologies that are going to change the industry in the coming years or decades?
Yeah, they already are changing them as we speak. Actually, when you think about AI, artificial intelligence, and in the marketing world, Chat GPT is a really big conversation. And so we've already tapped into that to really understand how to use the tools and how we can take advantage of the tools. I know that there's been a lot of conversation that is instilling fear in people and in marketers, you know, in terms of, oh, we're going to be replaced here in a few years by AI and by all of these tools. And I've had people say, oh, I don't really need a marketer anymore. You know, I can have AI do all of my social media posts and whatnot. And while that's true to a certain extent, and I'm having fun with AI, right? Because I'm trying to figure out how can we utilize it to really maximize its potential, but also show people where we still are valuable. Because at the end of the day, and this is the emotional aspect of marketing, AI is just, it's a machine at the end of the day. And it's as good as the prompts that we put in and the information it collects about us. And so I think the more the more we use it and the more prevalent it becomes, the more we have to understand that our value comes in with being human and being emotional. And those are two big topics and concepts that my book focuses on, is how can you be more human and more emotional, but also more cultural. And so that's something where I think that we have to be really strong in to make sure that we still are providing value in that space.
Well, that sounds like you have a real good lock on that. And
Uh,
that you may be spending some time educating your customers about that, about
yeah.
they say with AI that, you shouldn't be afraid of it, but the people that learn to use it, those are the ones that are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, and really know how to use it and help their clients understand how to use it, because like again, a lot of it comes in the prompt, and there's a skill set of how to use it and how to adjust, you know, the way you use it.
Right. Well, going back to the beginning of computers, they had the saying garbage in, garbage out. It's kind of the same thing here.
Exactly.
Okay. I just want to know if there's any a quote from your book that you would like to sign off with or something like that. You
Uh,
have a tagline, Lydia?
you know what? I use there are so many different quotes I think in the book that we can take away. But one thing that I focus on in the book is, and it's something that's been a part of Blended Collective since the start, is that we connect with brands the same way we connect with people. And it's something that I've sort of said or used as the tagline for years. And I brought it back in the book because again, I think it resonates very well when we compare the person to person relationship and then the consumer to brand relationship. And there are a lot of parallels that I draw in the book about that. And so that's probably one that I would pick here.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that I'm looking forward to reading the book. I have it. So next time we talk, I will have read it and I'll have more questions for you.
That sounds good.